The bridge let out this deep groan, then it cracked. And for a split second, the whole world just paused. I was standing up on the ridge, watching it happen. Jessica let out this high-pitched scream and stumbled backward in her heels, totally panicked. The brand-new neighborhood footbridge, yep, the one the HOA had just finished building, collapsed right into my creek, slow as molasses, like something out of a disaster flick. Just minutes earlier, the board had been all smiles, cutting that red ribbon. And now, their shiny little pet project was sinking into the very mud they'd sworn wasn't there. Cue freeze frame. That's me you're looking at. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. How the hell did I end up being the guy who sabotaged a $250,000 bridge in broad daylight, and somehow still came out squeaky clean in court? Well, pull up a lawn chair. The story? It starts with land theft, winds through some high-stakes legal drama, and let's just say there's a little hands-on engineering in the middle. So, let's rewind a bit. When I first bought the place, what I wanted more than anything was peace. I'm talking real, honest-to-God quiet. The kind you feel in your bones when the morning fog rolls in, or hear in the background hum of frogs come sundown. My land sits just outside the city line. Not too far from civilization, close enough to grab groceries or fill the tank without packing a lunch, but far enough to leave the chaos behind. 3 acres of wild charm, all mine. A mossy creek ran along the western edge, old oak trees stood tall on the ridge like quiet sentinels, and a patch of prairie grass out front that I swore, hand to God, I'd never mow. After years of battling HOA nonsense in the suburbs, I thought I'd finally escaped. That dream lasted all of 6 weeks. The first time I met Jessica Reynolds was on a Thursday afternoon. I was unloading fence posts from the back of my truck when she just strutted up, blonde, crisp polo shirt, sunglasses perched on her head like a tiara. She waved like we were besties already, and without even pausing, stepped right over the property line. "Hi there," she chirped. "You must be the new owner of Parcel 14B. I'm Jessica, president of the Willow Ridge Meadows HOA. We're just across the creek." I gave a polite nod, already wishing I'd pretended not to hear her. She smiled the kind of smile people use right before they try to sell you something you don't want. "We're super excited about the bridge project," she went on. "This little stream will make such a charming crossing for our community trail. Connects both cul-de-sacs just beautifully. We'll be marking out the build site by week's end. Shouldn't bother you much, but I thought I'd give you the courtesy of a heads up." I blinked. "Wait, what bridge?" Her smile faltered for half a second. "Oh, it was in the newsletter. The board approved it last month. It'll go right over the creek. Just a footbridge. Nothing invasive. It'll improve access, boost property values. Totally standard." I let the post hole digger drop with a thud. "Jessica, that creek? That's my land. Every inch of it." Her grin didn't fade much. "Oh, I think there's been a little mix-up. Our legal maps show a public access easement running right along the stream." "Along," I repeated. "Not across. That easement's for utilities, not for building a footbridge to march strangers across my backyard." She slid her sunglasses down a notch. "Well, I'm sure it'll all work out. We've already submitted permits to the county." Then, like she hadn't just claimed my creek in broad daylight, she turned and strolled back across my grass. That night, I pulled out every file I had. Deed, title, an old plat map dated 1973. I went over every line, twice. No easement. No public access. Nothing but solid black borders making one thing absolutely clear. That creek, and 15 feet on either side, was mine. And yet, the next morning, bright orange flags popped up anyway. Stuck in the ground like little declarations of war. It felt like I was watching a queen stake out new land. From my front porch, I saw a survey crew poking around, measuring the creek banks, spraying pink dots on the ground, and snapping photos like they were sightseeing. One of the guys casually stepped onto my property without so much as a nod. "You're trespassing," I called out. He just waved, kinda lazy-like, and kept clicking pictures. That's when I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Day 1, I said out loud. "Let the documentation begin." And yeah, things only went downhill from there. By the end of the week, a trailer rolled in, piled with rebar, concrete bags, and steel frames. No one rang the doorbell. They just marched down the hill and started setting up like they owned the place. I walked over to talk to the foreman, and he barely looked up. Just mumbled something about following orders from the board, then handed me a printed set of blueprints. Right there in bold letters, Willow Ridge Connector Bridge, Phase 1. The plan showed a full concrete span going right over my creek. The thing was supposed to anchor on my side, with a concrete footer buried 2 feet into my creek bank. I circled the date on that plan, approved 2 weeks before I even bought the property. Suddenly, that smug look Jessica wore made a lot more sense. This wasn't spur of the moment. They'd been planning it before I even showed up. Trouble was, nobody had bothered to ask if the land actually belonged to them. So I called up the county, filed a formal complaint, and faxed over a copy of my plat map with a handwritten note. No permission granted. Private land. Construction is illegal. Did that stop them? Not even close. 2 days later, they poured the footer. Concrete trucks, wheelbarrows, a noisy generator, and even a porta-potty showed up, parked right in the shade of my oldest oak tree. But I caught it all on camera. Every truck, every piece of equipment, every single step. I started a folder on my computer and called it Exhibit A. I logged everything like I was prepping for court. Because that's exactly what I was doing. Jessica gave up pretending we were on good terms. Instead, she started sending me cheerful little HOA updates packed with passive-aggressive gems like, "We're grateful to those neighbors who support improved community access." I shot back a cease and desist email, drafted by a lawyer buddy of mine in Missouri. Her reply? 1 line. "Your claims lack merit. Construction continues." So I quit arguing, got quiet, and I found a way in. Now, I couldn't vote at HOA meetings, but my friend Brian could. He owned the lot on the far side of the creek, just barely touching the HOA boundary. He agreed to sit in on the meetings for me, attend in my name. He also started recording those board sessions. And man, was that a gold mine. In one meeting, clear as day, Jessica was caught on tape saying, "Mr. Miller has been uncooperative, but we've decided to move forward under quiet title assumptions." Quiet title, Myas. They were gambling I wouldn't have the time or money to fight back. What they didn't count on was that I've got more stubborn in me than sense, and a whole lot of free time when I'm mad. I made 2 trips to the county assessor's office. Dug through dusty records. Found the original land surveys. Compared them to the developer's 2006 site plan and realized, big surprise, they didn't match the real terrain. Even better, I discovered the so-called easement they kept referring to. It was revoked back in 1984 after a failed utility expansion. In other words, they weren't building on facts, they were building on fantasy. Meanwhile, I kept walking the site. Week after week, I took photos. Every change was logged. I documented the rebar layout, beam deliveries, the deck forms they poured, and even the cheap sealant they used on the footers. I knew how long that stuff would last too. I wasn't just trying to stop the bridge. No, I wanted them to finish it. I needed them to. Because only then could I prove, beyond a doubt, that it was built illegally, that it was unsafe, and that not once did the actual landowner ever give his consent. This wasn't just about property lines anymore. I wasn't just going to fight them, I was going to let their own ambition bury them. And the whole mess started with a quiet little creek, a smug HOA president named Megan, and a bridge no one ever had permission to build. Funny thing is, the first real sign that this was about to go thermonuclear didn't come in the form of shouting or legal threats. It came with silence. That special kind of cold, creeping, weaponized suburbia silence. The kind that moves in like fog, slow, quiet, and everywhere all at once. It started small with the stairs. There was this older couple who always used to wave when they passed my gate. Suddenly, they couldn't even look at me. Just eyes dead ahead, like I was some ghost they were told to ignore. The joggers, the ones who used to smile or toss a quick, "Hey," now went out of their way to cross the street if I was out front. Even the mailman, who once joked about my driveway being steep enough to qualify as a ski slope, turned robotic. No small talk, no eye contact. Just stuff the mail and move on. Then the letters started coming. At first, I figured it was more HOA junk mail. But when I opened the first envelope, there it was, sharp as scribbled across lined notebook paper. Why do you hate community progress? That's when I knew this wasn't about zoning lines anymore. This had turned into something uglier. 3 days later, another note showed up. No return address. This one said, one person shouldn't stop an entire neighborhood. Selfish. Then came the third. It looked like a damn ransom note, words cut from magazines and glued together like something out of a crime show. We'll build the bridge with or without you. I brought them all inside, laid them out on the kitchen table like evidence from a true crime podcast, and labeled each one with a sticky note, Megan's PR campaign, Phase 1. Because that's exactly what it was. A full-blown smear job. Megan wasn't just pushing a bridge anymore. She was building a whole narrative. And in that story, I was the villain, the antisocial hill guy, the blocker, the crusty loner standing in the way of progress. The next HOA newsletter sealed it. There was a feature called Healing a Divided Neighborhood. They didn't have to name me, it was obvious. The article included a graphic of the proposed bridge, ending right at my property line with a bold label, Current Barriers to Completion. Subtle as a brick through a window. Then came the violations. Bright orange notices started popping up on my gate like weeds. Every other day, something new. One said my grass was too tall, even though I'd mowed it the day before and had timestamped video proof. Another claimed my fence was a safety hazard. Never mind it had just passed a county inspection 8 weeks earlier. And then there was the puddle, yeah, a puddle. Maybe the size of a dinner plate, where my hose had leaked during irrigation. They flagged it for standing water and mosquito risk. It was all retaliation. Sloppy. Desperate. But loud. So I scanned every single notice, added them to my growing folder, and gave that one a new name, HOA Violation Harassment. It was time to turn things up on my end. I installed 2 new trail cams. One deep in the trees, aimed at where the work crew liked to stash their materials. The other went under the eave of my barn with a wide-angle lens. Both were set to record on motion, 24/7 surveillance. Didn't take long for the footage to get interesting. First clip I saved showed them dumping concrete footings, right on my side of the creek. No posted permits, no county inspector. Just 2 guys, a skid loader, and a whole lot of nerve, digging into my embankment and pouring in quickset concrete like they were divinely entitled. I marked the time, clipped the footage, and filed it. 3 days later, they started digging trenches. And I don't mean tiny ditches for erosion control. They started trenching next. And not the kind you dig for a sprinkler line either. I'm talking deep trench work, laying a buried pipe through the bank to divert creek overflow underneath the bridge foundation. Like it was their land to reshape. A week later, I walked the creek bed and noticed something felt off. The natural bend of the stream had been messed with. They'd rechanneled the water. When I measured it out, I saw the shift, about 4 feet west. Onto my side. They were literally rerouting my creek to prop up their foundation. That's when I called the county. The environmental office passed me along to a field agent named Erica Lane. She was sharp, didn't sugarcoat a thing, and had the kind of dry sense of humor that tells you she's been dealing with people like this for years. 2 days later, she showed up, clipboard in hand, boots on, and a scowl that could cut steel. After pacing the creek's edge for maybe 15 minutes, she looked up and said flatly, they didn't file a thing. No hydrology report. No soil displacement assessment. And definitely no watershed alteration permits. Then she flipped the page and tapped her pen on the form like she was about to light a fuse. This is a Class C infraction at minimum, she said. Could be higher depending on how much flow they've displaced. I nodded slowly. Oh yeah, I know exactly what it means. They're screwed, she added. But they don't know it yet, I finished. Erica filed her report. And I didn't waste a second. I followed up with my own formal cease and desist letter. Listed every violation, attached photos with timestamps, and copied in everyone from the county clerk to the zoning board to the environmental commission. For good measure. I even had it hand-delivered to the HOA office. Poor intern signed for it like I was handing her a live grenade. Megan's response? Classic. She added a bullet point to the next HOA meeting agenda. Something about addressing misinformation and obstruction regarding the community bridge project. But here's the kicker. The bridge work didn't slow down. It ramped up. That's when it clicked. They weren't just ignoring the complaints. They were racing them, trying to finish the bridge before the red tape could catch up. Build now, apologize later. Classic developer move. So, I changed tactics. I stopped playing by their rules. They wanted to play legal chess? Fine. I'd already been 5 moves ahead while they were still arguing over who gets to be the top hat in Monopoly. I printed signs and posted them along my side of the creek. Private property. Unauthorized construction. Violation of County Code 16.7c. Trespassers will be recorded and prosecuted. Every time the crew showed up, I logged it with the sheriff's department. Sure, they didn't do anything. They called it a civil matter, but now there was a paper trail. Every ignored report. Every brushed-off call. I staked bright orange survey flags along the true boundary line. Each flag was labeled with my parcel number and exact GPS coordinates. No guessing. Then I called up the local paper. Gave them a quote. Anonymous, of course. Resident alleges HOA ignored environmental codes for bridge project. They ran the story. Megan? She panicked. But the moment I knew things were shifting didn't come from a lawsuit or the newspaper. It came from the new guy down the road, Steve. He just moved in, young family, golden retriever, basically a stock photo of suburban dream. One morning, he knocked on my door, literally holding his baseball cap in his hands. Sorry to bother you, he said. But is it true that they never actually got permission to build the bridge? I raised an eyebrow. You heard that? He nodded. Megan's been telling everyone that you're the reason the project's delayed. But then I saw the plans. That bridge cuts across your land. That can't be legal. I didn't say a word. Just handed him a copy of the site map, my plat, and the cease and desist letter. He flipped through them, eyes getting wider with each page. Jesus, he muttered. They really did this. They did, I said. And they're not done yet. After that, word spread. Not loud, but steady. Quietly, like steam under a lid. The smear campaign? Gone. The cold stares? Starting to fade. And for the first time in months, a few neighbors actually started saying hello again. Things started shifting. Megan had pushed too far. What was once the crown jewel of her little HOA empire was now turning into a lawsuit waiting to happen. And all I had to do was wait. Sit tight, and make sure that when it all came tumbling down, I had the receipts in hand. Because this wasn't about a footbridge anymore. This was about every rule Megan had broken to build it. Every lie she told to keep it standing. And every quiet neighbor who finally saw the cracks in her perfect, pastel-painted kingdom. You'd be amazed at how many secrets a bridge will spill if you get close enough to listen. Now look, I'm no licensed structural engineer, but I've spent over 30 years in commercial construction. I've poured more concrete and handled enough steel to frame a small city. So yeah, I know how things are supposed to be built, and more importantly, how they fail. It started off as what I'd call a casual inspection. Well, casual for me. I had on steel-toe boots, a dusty old reflective vest I dug out of my garage, and a clipboard with a red sticker that said, Site Observation, Property Owner. Nobody asked what agency I was with. They just took one look and figured I was someone they shouldn't mess with. I walked the length of that half-finished bridge twice. Nice and slow. Measured my steps. Counted every bolt. Checked beam spans and rebar spacing with a pocket ruler. The work crew barely paid me any attention. Probably thought I was just some mid-level inspector who got lost in paperwork. One guy even offered me a bottle of water. Real polite. Good kid. But the problems? They jumped out at me. Shoddy formwork. Reused plywood in spots. Uneven expansion gaps. And my personal favorite, a gap between the eastern footing and the deck that had been shimmed with crushed gravel and scrap rebar. They were building this fast. Sloppy. Out of order. My guess? The board was pressuring them to wrap it up before any legal blocks landed. Their arrogance had finally outpaced their shortcuts. But the jackpot, the real golden goose, was right under the southern footing. That's where I spotted the gift-wrap disaster. A support brace that had been jerry-rigged into the hillside using a steel anchor plate. Problem was, it wasn't even rated for outdoor erosion zones. It was half buried in what used to be solid ground. But now, it was sitting on washed-out soil, thanks to that trench they dug to reroute my creek. The drainage pipe they'd laid was already sagging. After just a week of spring rain, it was bowing like wet cardboard. I didn't need blueprints to know how this ended. I could see it plain as day. So, I did what any sensible man would do when he knows the weather, the gravity, and the incompetence are all working in his favor. I flagged it, filed a formal letter to the HOA's construction liaison. In it, I stated that, as the landowner under the southern footing, I'd completed a visual inspection and found clear signs of substandard support and possible foundation failure from accelerated erosion. I CC'd the county environmental inspector, Megan, and a few members of the board for good measure. The response came 2 days later. An unsigned letter from the HOA's legal team. Your concerns have been noted. Independent engineers retained by the Willow Ridge Meadows HOA have confirmed the structural integrity of the bridge as designed. Further interference with construction will be considered obstruction. Obstruction? How cute. I printed that letter and added it to my now very thick folder of evidence. Then I grabbed my gloves and went back to the bridge at night. Now let me be clear, I didn't destroy anything. I didn't touch a single load-bearing part of the bridge. That's the beauty of this. It wasn't sabotage. It was subtraction. All I did was take out one little wedge. Just one. It was a sad-looking chunk of wood someone had lazily shoved beneath a temporary column brace, supposed to be holding things steady until they poured the final grout. According to my notes, that grout never got poured. The wedge wasn't even compression rated. Just a dry, splintering piece of pine, worn soft by time and water damage. It crumbled in my hand the second I picked it up. I slid it into my pocket, turned around, and walked off into the morning fog. And after that, I waited. Because Mother Nature, faithful old accomplice that she is, took care of the rest. That week, the rain came down. Not a dramatic storm, no lightning or flash flooding. Just steady, gray, bone-chilling rain. 6 days of it. The kind that soaks through your jacket, settles into your crawl space, and seeps into the foundation of every overconfident man who once muttered, "It'll hold." And then came the grand event. Yep, I got an invitation. So did everyone else. Glossy postcards showed up in mailboxes, slapped on bulletin boards, emailed with pastel banners and bubbly fonts. Ribbon-cutting ceremony, Willow Ridge Community Footbridge. Join us for cupcakes, speeches, and progress. Megan even posted a video in the neighborhood Facebook group, flashing her HOA badge like she was the sheriff of Pleasantville. We're proud to finish this project ahead of schedule and under budget, she beamed. This is about connection, unity, community values. If only she'd known what was about to happen. I showed up early, brought my thermos of coffee, a folding chair, and parked myself just inside the treeline, about 20 yards from the southern slope. Didn't talk to anyone. Just sat there and watched. There was a local news guy milling around, small-time affiliate, probably promised a scoop. A drone buzzed overhead, getting dramatic shots of the shiny white bridge with its little planter boxes zip-tied to the rails. Then I spotted Megan. Blue blazer, flanked by the usual suspects from the board, Scott, Linda, and Dave. Dave's the one who always asked if I really needed that many trees on my property. Real nature lover, that one. They gathered at the edge of the bridge. Behind them, a crowd of maybe 40 neighbors, phones up, umbrellas out, kids bouncing around in rain boots. The clouds had broken just enough to give the whole scene a golden glow, like it was blessed or something. Scott handed Megan a pair of those giant ceremonial scissors. She raised them high, all smiles, and said, "Today, we cross into the future together." The ribbon dropped. People cheered. Cameras flashed. And the board stepped out onto the bridge, 4 proud community leaders, walking shoulder to shoulder. I saw the shift before they did. The southern footing gave, just a half-inch dip, right as they passed the midpoint. You wouldn't notice it if you weren't watching. But I was. Then came the sound. Not the crack of wood. This was deeper, throatier. The low, aching groan of concrete losing its grip on soil that had finally had enough. And then came the collapse. It wasn't instant. First, a wet crunch, like boots in mud. Then, a sudden lurch. The whole south end of the bridge dropped a full foot. Screams. Shouts. Total chaos. Scott fell backwards and scraped his elbow. Linda grabbed the rail at the last second to avoid taking a muddy swan dive. The drone caught it all, every glorious second. One of the planter boxes launched off the side like a missile, slammed into the creek, and exploded in a splash of dirt and fake flowers. And Megan, oh Megan, went down hard. One knee, middle of the deck, arms flailing like she was trying to flag down a helicopter. Her hair? Soaked. Her blazer? Streaked with mud. Her face? Pure, stunned confusion. The kind of look you only see when reality steamrolls the fairy tale you've been selling for way too long. I didn't move a muscle. Just took a slow sip of coffee and snapped a photo from where I sat. Then came the best part. The neighborhood group chat detonated. Videos from every possible angle. Slow-motion replays. Memes flying like confetti. Someone even edited together a montage of Megan slipping on the bridge, set to "We Built the City." Within the hour, there was a gif of Scott falling backward, captioned, "A bridge too far, Scott." By sunset, Megan's muddy face had made it into at least 15 different group threads. A brand new Facebook group popped up that night. The Collapse of Willow Ridge, HOA Fails and Funnies. It had over 400 members by the next morning. The HOA's credibility? Absolutely toast. And the wildest part? I hadn't even filed my lawsuit yet. Nobody got seriously hurt, just a few bruised egos and some soggy socks. But the bridge? That thing was toast. The southern support had shifted so badly that within 48 hours, structural engineers called it unsafe. Completely unsalvageable. And they couldn't pin it on me. I hadn't touched a single part of their precious bridge once construction wrapped up. It was the rain. It was nature. It was gravity. And maybe a little bit of karma. 3 days after the bridge collapsed, I got a knock on my door that might as well have come with circus music. A guy in khakis with a sad little comb-over handed me a manila envelope and said the words I'd been waiting for. "You've been served." Megan Thompson, in all her soggy glory, was suing me for intentional sabotage, property damage, obstruction of community development, and my personal favorite, malicious negligence. I actually laughed out loud reading that one. The lawsuit was thick, dramatic adjectives, wild assumptions, printed on letterhead with faux gold ink like it was the Constitution or something. According to Megan, I had deliberately removed critical support from the bridge, all while publicly denying any involvement. She even claimed I stirred up unrest among residents and tried to destroy public trust. Erode public trust. That line had me cackling. What she didn't know, and what her lawyer was about to regret deeply, was that I'd been preparing for this like a man heading into battle. While Megan was out there playing HOA Empress and doing photo ops at ribbon cuttings, I'd been quietly building a case, documenting every crack in her pastel kingdom. The very next morning, I filed my counterclaim. It was a full inch thicker than hers and titled in bold, "Countersuit for trespass, unlawful construction, defamation, and fraudulent misrepresentation." And oh, I came loaded. I attached 24 timestamp videos. Drone footage from my buddy Brian. He owed me a favor after I helped him trap a possum in his attic. 5 certified land surveys, including the original 1973 plat map. 2 independent engineering reports confirming the bridge failed due to improper footings. And the cherry on top? A packet of internal HOA emails. Anonymous source. No name, but the writing style was unmistakable. A board member, fed up with the nonsense. Those emails showed Megan had pressured the board to skip inspections, fast-track construction to dodge incoming environmental laws, and, my attorney's favorite quote, "This beauty. Once the bridge is finished, he won't have a legal leg to stand on. It'll be a done deal." That sentence became the crown jewel of our case. We scheduled the court date. Then I sat back and let the fuse burn. Megan tried to rally the troops online, tossing out vague, half-baked posts in the Willow Ridge Facebook group. Community values, she wrote. One selfish neighbor can't stop our vision for progress. Yeah, but the comments weren't exactly going her way anymore. After the bridge collapse, after the Facebook memes, after the HOA jacked up everyone's dues to cover emergency repair costs, the neighborhood wasn't applauding their self-proclaimed queen anymore. Then came the court date. The moment I stepped into that courtroom, you could hear the silence settle. Heavy. There she was, Megan Thompson, sitting at the plaintiff's table in a navy blue pantsuit that looked about one size too small for the pressure she was under. Her attorney kept adjusting his tie like it was trying to strangle him. He glanced back and forth between her and the judge like he already knew how this was gonna end. My lawyer? Dana Fields. No nonsense. She walked in like she was already bored of winning. We opened strong. Exhibit: the bridge collapsing in high definition from 6 different angles. Exhibit B: that same bridge being built smack in the middle of my property, zoomed in tight on the survey stakes I'd marked with my parcel number. The judge leaned over his bench and paused the video. "This is your land?" he asked. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "Here's the original 1973 plat map, and a certified GPS overlay from last year confirming it." Megan's lawyer tried to object.